Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. With me, or I should introduce myself first. I'm Callie Osted from Nebraska Tourism, and with me I have Karen Barrett, the tax specialist of policy divisions of the Department of Revenue here. She's going to be walking us through lodging tax basics, getting us into more of the questions about what it is, how it can be collected, and all the things that it can do. If you have any questions during today's presentation, feel free to email me. My email is callie.osted@nebraska.gov. We'll be getting those in just a few minutes. So thank you, Karen, for joining us, and we're really excited to have you here.
Well, I'm glad to be here too, and the timing is great because just this past Monday, the Department of Revenue went live with their new revised website, and on the screen I have the website for the Department of Revenue now. It's still the same address, revenue.nebraska.gov, but it has a whole new look to it, and as we say on there, we are committed to helping taxpayers understand and meet their tax obligations. And so we'll find that this new website will help you navigate through what you need to work towards properly paying the tax obligations that you have, sales tax, lodging taxes, and figure out any answers to questions that you have. So I was going to introduce our website, and I'm going to start with one important part that someone may not even be aware of, but we promote it, and I'll start with it, and hopefully I'll end with it too, because we find it very helpful for people using our website. And that's the subscribe to notifications link on our website. And all it is a place for you to sign up with either an email or a text message. And if you then would enter that information, the email or the text, and submit it, then the next link or the next page will be a list of tax categories that we cover on our website, and you can select any tax categories you want. Lodging tax would be the one I would suggest highly for your group, and sales tax, but there's also a big interest in maybe income tax withholding and personal income tax, business income taxes. They're all out there, but for sure go to lodging taxes and sales tax and subscribe to those two services, so that whenever we do any kind of changes on those particular tax programs, like form changes, rate changes, city sales tax, taxes that become in effect, that you get a notification by an email or a text that shows you what the changes are. So you don't have to be out there navigating our website trying to figure out what's new since I was here last time to file my sales tax return or something like that. So we want to point that out to you and let you know how important it is for your use to use that link. Speaking of forms, here's our Nebraskan County Lodging Tax Return. It's the Form 64. It's the same name, but we have some new information on it. And these changes came about as a result of LB 284. LB 284 was legislation that passed that identified that multi-vendor marketplace platform companies, which we refer to as MMPs, those businesses that are acting as an intermediary for facilitating sales for sellers and purchases. Sometimes these are known as Expedia type companies, but they're also called remote sellers. That legislation identified that those companies facilitating sales are actually a retailer, and they need to identify and report and remit their sales tax and their county lodging and their lodging tax, state and county lodging taxes themselves, not the individual hotel or home. So on our Form 64, we changed the exemption lines. We used to have, we have our 30-day exemption for 30 continuous days of stay at any hotel. On that 30-day and past, then there is an exemption for sales tax and an exemption for lodging tax. So that's line 2. Line 3, we combined the exempt organizations and exempt governmental units. So they're both identified on line 3 of the Form 64. Line 4 is our new line. It's where you as a hotel, and I'll go into the definition of hotels in a little bit because it's not just a hotel as regularly, we refer to them as. But this is where the hotel industry will enter the total amount reported on your behalf by an MMP. So remember, an MMP is a remote seller that is facilitating sales. They're taking the reservations, they're taking the payments from the traveler, and they are working with you to provide that service that you provide to them. So that line is where you, as a hotel owner, would enter the amount that they will be reporting on their return, and you would deduct it from your gross receipts to get down to line 5, which is your total allowable deductions, and you'll pay tax to us on what would result as being your net taxable receipts for the hotel. So make sure that you've noticed that change. If you have software that completes this, that would be important to be aware of that, because this is a big difference in what will be your gross receipts to your net taxable receipts. From that point on, the form is the same. We have line 7, where it's the combined Nebraska 1% lodging tax and the county lodging tax. The county lodging tax is varied by county, and it can be a 0.5% to a 2% rate for various funds. Maximum county lodging tax is 4%, and I'll go into the 2 different kinds of funds that the county lodging tax is made up of. So from that point on, line 7 is just the tax that you owe. We pay you back up to $75 as a collection fee that we let you keep for collecting the taxes for us and doing this preparation of the return and stuff. So you subtract that collection fee, and then your line 9 is your total state and county lodging tax that you would owe to the Department of Revenue. So that's the new Form 64. We revised that in August 2019, so you should have seen it already for a couple months. You can fill it out on our website on this version of it, and you can enter the amounts you have, print it, and send it in. The tax form has to come in by a paper version at this point still. The payments can be made electronically though. So that's the form. We do have some definitions on this form that I just want to touch base with right now, because the word hotel is not like just a downtown building in any city. It actually includes any hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, campground, court, tourist home, or inn. And it does include an entire home or a room in a home or properties that are made available to rent or for a short-term rental to the public for a limited amount of time. Normally these rentals are in high demand during a major celebration in your city or a big event that's happening, such as a big football game or something. So we do want to make sure that people understand if you're renting out your home or a room in your home through Airbnb or through another company, you are required to have a sales tax and a lodging tax license unless all of your sales are provided and facilitated through a licensed remote seller, such as Airbnb. So if you take some reservations privately, and you also take a lot of them through Airbnb, you are required to have a sales tax and a lodging tax license. So just to touch base on that. The rest of the form is pretty much as it has been for years. It is due the 25th of the month, every month. For lodging tax, we have 2 filing frequencies. We have the filing frequency of monthly, so the tax month, November through the end of November, is due by December 25th. Well, the 25th is a holiday, so it would be by the next business day. But the lodging tax return is due the 25th of the next month following the end of the tax period. The only other filing frequency that we have for lodging tax is annual filers. And we allow an annual filer if you have less than $99 of combined state and county lodging tax paid to the Department of Revenue in a year's time. So that would be a very small operation. So the majority of the lodging tax filers are monthly filers. Sales tax, however, is different. Sales tax has a monthly, quarterly, and annual filing frequency that can be set up for your filing of your sales tax return. And a lot of just to touch base on sales tax real quick, that's filed on the sales tax return, which is the Form 10. It is, we did also make changes in that form because it had the same changes as far as sales that were facilitated through a, oops, don't need that up here yet. Sales that were facilitated through, need to get back to our website. Sales that are facilitated through an MMP or remote seller, those would be, we also have an adjustment line on the Form 10 to make that adjustment for those sales so that they are reported and remitted, the taxes collected are remitted by the remote seller, not the hotel. So going back to our new website, other than our subscribe to notifications that I already talked about, the local government link is where you're going to find the Nebraskan County lodging tax information. And so that is where we're going to touch base a little bit. But I also wanted to show you for sales tax returns, the sales tax information is, I'm new to this too, is under businesses. You can go here for businesses or at the top and click on sales and use tax. And it will once again bring up the Form 10. It has information on the state rate. It has information on upcoming changes in the local sales tax rate. And since I have some time to do it, I'm going to let you know about some changes for January 1st, 2020. The local taxes are imposed normally at a city level, city or a village. A county, however, is allowed to impose a local sales tax also. Currently, we have Dakota County that's had a local sales tax for years. County sales tax is only allowed to be imposed for safety purposes within a county. But there was a new law that was passed last year specific to Gage County, which was, the change in that is that Gage County sales tax will be in addition to any city in the county of Gage that also has a city sales tax, which is different from any of the other county taxes. Let me back up. Dakota County is in an area within Dakota County, but it is not imposed when the sale is made within a city that also imposes a city sales tax. So Dakota City has a city sales tax. So the state rate of 5.5% plus Dakota City's city sales tax will be the only two taxes in Dakota County. The Dakota County sales tax would only be collected when in an area outside of any of the municipalities that do not have a city sales tax. Gage County sales tax was under a different law that was implemented this year, and it is in addition to any city sales tax. So in Gage County, starting January 1, 2020, it is the state sales tax rate, any city sales tax rate like Beatrice, Cortland, Weimar, Odell. Those are 4 cities in Gage County that already have a city sales tax. Claytonia is going to be coming up in April of 2020 with a 0.5% rate. In those cities, they are still to be collected, but the Gage County 0.5% rate will be collected in addition to the state rate and any city sales tax rate. That is a big change from normal, so we want to make sure that the retailers out there all are aware of that. And we've been promoting that, and information has been put out there on our website on that. On our sales tax return, we really didn't make a lot of changes because the main change is just that sales that are facilitated through the remote sellers are to be reported now by the remote seller and not by the in-state retailer or licensed retailer. So I'm going to go back now to the local government, Nebraska County and County Lodging Tax, our website there. It covers their, the 1% Nebraska lodging tax, and then that is a state rate that goes to the Tourism Commission. And right now we have, I think there's, well, here's a list of all the counties and their history as to when they had a county lodging tax, what the rate was, and you can see you can change it. You can change it from what you initially voted in to a higher rate. So we can talk about the two funds that a county can impose in just a little bit, but I wanted to talk about first the fact that there's, I think, only maybe 70, let's see, I think I have some notes on this. I think there's 79 counties that currently impose a county lodging tax. So there's several of you out there that can still impose a county lodging tax. If you're interested in doing that, we have an easy way to figure out how to do that, and it's really not a hard process to get to. We have on our website the lodging tax regulations. The regulations pretty much haven't changed, but if you haven't read them for a while, they're really not too boring. They're pretty exciting, actually. The definitions is going to talk to you about what a hotel means. It is the state of Nebraska, all the gaming and parks commissions, they have to have all their campgrounds all registered. They're collecting sales tax from their customers, you and I, the travelers, so they're collecting sales tax and lodging taxes on all of those facilities also. But it is just, the definition out there says anyone in the public that's offered sleeping accommodations to the public, that you need to be collecting sales tax and lodging tax on that. But the county lodging tax that I wanted to refer to is in Reg-6-008 or 009. This regulation walks you through how county tax can be implemented, and it also talks about the various funds that a county would receive if they do decide to implement a county lodging tax. So since I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of walk through this process and stuff. So any county can impose a county lodging tax. There's basically 6 steps that I've kind of surmised from this, but actually Reg 9-0002 here, it summarizes it very quickly for us. I'm just going to read it. A county may impose a lodging tax after its governing body has held a public hearing and adopted a resolution to impose the tax, and you need to establish a county visitors promotion fund and a visitors committee. And that visitors committee just is an advisory council to the county board to administer the proceeds from the tax. So if your county is interested in imposing a county lodging tax or increasing the current one, then decide what you want to do, have the public hearing to propose what you want to do. If it is, if the board decides to impose it, then they have to adopt a resolution and adopt the increase or adopt the county rate that you set to impose in your county. Create the visitors committee and send that information to us. The effective date of your county lodging tax will be the first day of a calendar quarter that is 120 days after we receive your resolution. So for right now, December 2nd is my cutoff date to receive information to start any county lodging taxes as of April 1 of 2020. So that would be a date, just to give you for instance, of how long, what the timeline is to establish a county lodging tax. This regulation, which has, 8 different sections to it, really is pretty valuable information for any county that is looking at imposing that county lodging tax, because it tells you about what rates a county lodging tax can be, and it talks about the funds and stuff like that. So take a look at this regulation, and as always, we, the Department of Revenue, we're here to help you. So if you have questions, my contact information is on this website, and I'd be happy to help with that, walking you through the steps if you have further questions on that. As I was talking about earlier, one of the biggest changes in lodging tax is the fact that remote sellers are now required to be licensed. And we have received license applications from several of them already. We're working with them to make sure they understand what they need to remit to us on both their sales tax return and on lodging tax returns. So they have always been collecting sales tax and lodging tax on your behalf. They will continue to collect that on your behalf and on the sales that they facilitate for you, but they will now remit to us, the Department of Revenue, that tax money for sales tax and lodging tax directly to us, the Department of Revenue, and you will not be remitting those taxes to us. So we want to make sure that you're both not sending us the taxes, because that would be money lost out of your pockets, and we don't want that. You know how you're being billed by them and some of this, and the money that you're pulling from their accounts and stuff to pay you for their reservations that they facilitate for you. But it's interesting that we found out that there's different ways that they're being paid, but that doesn't make any difference. They will provide to you the payment that you receive for providing the room, but they will be collecting and remitting the sales tax and lodging tax to us themselves directly, no longer through your records. And that Form 64, line 4 is where you take that exemption or that deduction on your liability to remit that lodging tax to us. And on the sales tax return, it's actually a deduction that you take in a worksheet before you get to line 2, your taxable sales on your Form 10. So, if there were any questions on the county lodging tax, we are here to help you with regard to what the rates can be, when it will be started, when it will be terminated. If you have a termination date, work with you on the resolution, stuff like that. Well, we don't draft the resolution or anything like that, but there's questions sometimes on, well, what's taxable and what's not taxable. So on our website, we also have all kinds of valuable information on the information guides on what is taxable. We have information guides on if someone's making a purchase with reserving a room or some of this, and they're using a state credit card or a federal credit card. We do get quite a few calls on how the payments are made for hotels and stuff like this. We have all kinds of information guides that give you examples of what series of cards are exempt. And I'm just going to touch base on a card or a form that we get quite a few of, hundreds of them every time. A 13 CCE, it's a credit card exemption form. And what this is, it's an application that we needed to create in the department years ago, about 10, 12 years ago, when the finance rules changed and hotels were no longer able to make a copy of the credit card used to show that it was a credit card issued to like a public school district or something like that, which is an exempt entity. So now that they can't keep any kind of a documentation of what card name was on there, and if the folio is not in the name of the public school district or the church that is exempt with us, then you could probably have some problems with convincing our auditors that this credit card with just a name on it was actually billed to the exempt entity and paid directly by the exempt entity. So we had to come up with a way to remedy that for you. So we have this Form 13 CCE, which is to be sent into us, the Department of Revenue, by the exempt entity. There's been some confusion out there where apparently some hotels or some nonprofits in some school districts that are exempt think that this gets given to the hotel. That's not the case. This is actually sent into us. It actually identifies who the exempt entity is, and they have to provide to us a copy of their credit card, a copy of the billing statement, copy of the payment to the bank or the credit card company to document that that credit card is issued to the exempt entity and paid directly by the exempt entity. Because without that documentation, you wouldn't know if it's got their name on it only, that it was not being paid by the employee and being reimbursed by the state, by that city agency or public school district. So that's what this form here can be submitted to us by the exempt entity. We will issue to them an exemption permit that will be specifically identifying the credit card that they put in here for their last 4 digits of the card and the expiration date of the card and the bank of the card. And that exemption permit is to be issued to you, the hotel industry, along with the Form 13, which is the resale or exempt sell certificate that we have used for years. These 2 documents together, the exemption permit that I issue from this Form 13 CCE, is to be given to you, the hotel, along with the Form 13 when it is a exempt entity that is not the state and not the federal government. Those 2 agency units have their own set of cards, and they have a separate information guide explaining that on a different on our information guides. So just information with regard to this form here, because this is a pretty popular form, and we want to make sure that you know its use and how to provide it to your cities, school district, churches that are in Nebraska, so they can get their credit cards identified by us as being exempt and get the form that they need to show up at your hotel and properly document that their credit card is okay. You don't have to charge them tax and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to touch base on this card here. So going back to the lodging tax information, I also want to point out that a lot of our forms here will cover the Nebraska Visitors Development Act. That's actually the entire law that covers how the Nebraska Tourism Commission was created and the acts and stuff like this. And it also touches base on the various county funds out here. 3717 is where the County Visitors Promotion Fund was created and established. And the Visitors Improvement Fund is also covered there. So these statutory references right here, we provide them all in our lodging tax county, Nebraskan County lodging tax link on our website. If you want to know who's supposed to be on that visitors committee and how is it supposed to be made up, the information on that is right here in this act here. If you want to know what the rates can be for the County Visitors Promotion Fund, it will tell you right in here. They can be, you know, it says what the rates can be, and I'll just go into that real quick. Like the County Promotion Fund, which is the first fund that, let me go back a little bit here. Okay. The County Promotion Fund is a fund that was created to allow, this is the State Visitors Promotion Fund. Let me scroll down to this. Sorry, I'm getting used to our new website too. So I have to go out and figure out where I need to be. Okay, The county visitors promotion fund, like I said earlier, is in that 81-3717, and that's just like our regulation 68.09 is where the biggest share of what you're going to want to know is in that particular statute right here. It will go on to tell you that a county promotion fund can be implemented by a county, any county, after there's a public hearing. If the governing body decides to pass a resolution and send that in to us, then depending on the days that we receive it, we'll establish the first calendar quarter date that it will start on. That's one thing you want to make sure that you understand is a county tax and any city sales tax or any local sales taxes have the same guidelines as the fact that they can only start, change, or terminate on the first day of a calendar quarter. So those dates are January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st. Those would be the only 4 days of the year that a local sales tax and a county lodging tax can start or terminate. So, but this statute here will let you know, and the statutes in this act will let you know that promotion fund can be 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, or 2%. Those are the increments that you can vote in or through a resolution can impose a county promotion fund. The county visitors fund can also be only at those same incremental amounts. So you can have both funds. Several counties do have both funds, and they have different usages. So the county promotion fund is used to promote, encourage, and attract visitors to the county and to see the attractions that you have at your county and in your area. The county improvement fund is used to make improvements to a facility, and that's what it is supposed to be used for. The improvement fund is different from the promotion fund in that regard. There is a requirement that no funds can be used at any facility that promotes pari-mutuel wagering, and there also is the ability that if the county board or the governing board decides that there's no facilities that need to be improved, then only in that situation, then they can use county improvement funds for promotion purposes. So that's information about the main differences between those two county funds. This also goes on to talk about the committee, the visitors committee. There's a county visitors committee which serves for both funds. Those members are identified as to the makeup of how they're supposed to be made up for the county. 5 members. If it's 5 members large, then at least 1, but no more than 2 members of the committee shall be in the hotel industry. So you have a part in that, definitely in that committee. If you have 7 members in the visitors committee, then at least 2, but not more than 3 members must be in the hotel industry. So just reading through the statutory language, it's not terribly legalese. It's really pretty easy to understand, and it tells you how to fill the vacancies and how long they can serve and changes in that regard. So we have, let me see what I want to touch base on next. Sometimes a county clerk might think that, boy, it sounds like an awful lot of work if I am going to impose it, if I'm going to work with this county fund. But really, the work's on the hotels. You get to just reap the rewards of the funds coming into you. At the point that it's set up, it's your governing board that meets, has a public hearing, does a resolution, gets it taken care of into us. We establish the dates that it's going to start. We change all of our forms, and we provide the information out to through our website notices, through that subscription to notification that I told you about earlier. We will publish that information there, and we put out news releases, and Then after that, the hotels were remitting that tax on that Form 64 and on their Form 10. And then each month, there will be a settlement deposited into your account at the county level, and you gotta go spend the money. You get to have promotions that you get to fund then through this fund. You can make improvements to your facilities through this as decided by your governing board. So that is kind of part of what we have on you know, the fact that this this funding really is just paid for by other people visiting your county. So by you trying to get more people to visit your county, it's just going to grow. And with our new LB 284, the legislation that imposed the collection of the sales tax and lodging tax on the remote sellers also, you will be receiving more funds just because they're collecting on your behalf from numerous people who we tried to get licensed. We've been working hard to try to get everyone that was supposed to be licensed for lodging tax licensed, but they know who they're making the reservations through, so it made it a lot easier to go through them to get that taken care of. So, a couple other comments about what we, you know, things that people wonder about lodging tax is, you know, touching base a little bit, and I already did address it, but if you have a part of your home or your entire home that you rent out for people to use and stay there, that is subject to sales tax and lodging tax. So if it's open to the public and they can get that, if you go through a company and all of your sales are through that company, like an Airbnb, VRBO, they are licensed with us. They will be collecting the sales tax and reporting it to us on your behalf. But you may, if you do some private reservations and you do that in addition to what they're facilitating for you, then those are your responsibility to report that tax. The license procedure is very easy. We have a Nebraska Tax Application. It's a Form 20. It's on our website, on that same site with our all our Nebraskan County lodging tax information. And it just is free. You apply for it, and you would at least need a sales tax and a lodging tax ID number that will be issued you a number, and then we'll follow up by sending you the tax returns for the programs that you need to be licensed for. Sometimes you may even need to be licensed for income tax withholding if you have employees. But Form 20 is how you get your license. If you have very few sales, then you can file on an annual basis for lodging and either quarterly basis or annual basis for sales tax. And the forms, the sales tax return can be filed electronically. The lodging tax return at this point is still a paper remission of the form, but the payments can come in electronically. So, let me see what's some of the topics I wanted to make sure we talk about and stuff. City occupation tax. This is a tax that the Department of Revenue does not impose. It is a tax that is imposed at the city level. There's a handful of cities, and they're all big cities, that do impose a city occupation tax. And because it is part of gross receipts, so it is subject to, it's a tax that's imposed by a city on a business. Unlike sales tax and lodging tax, those are taxes that are imposed at the state level by the Department of Revenue on the consumer. You, the hotel, you're our agent, and you're collecting that sales tax and that lodging tax for us, and you're emitting that tax to us, but it's collected, and it's an obligation on the consumer, your traveler, your guest. The occupation tax is imposed on the business. However, the occupation tax is a tax that when a city imposes it, that is allowed for that type of business to pass it on to the consumer, and they oftentimes will because it's the cost of doing business, but it is something that they're allowed to pass on to the guest. It by statute is part of gross receipts, because there's a regulation in our sales tax regulations, which is our regulation 7. It's on the definition of gross receipts. It identifies that an occupation tax cannot be deducted from gross receipts. So we have had, not issues, but we have had many questions on this tax, because when a city imposes an occupation tax on a hotel business, then sometimes a hotel will go, okay, we've got our room rate, now we've got a 3% city occupation tax, and then we have a 5.5% state sales tax rate, and a 1.5% city sales tax rate, and a 1% state lodging tax rate, and a 4% county lodging tax rate. And they just add all those taxes up together and say, okay, that's like whatever it is, 18% or something. And they take their room rate times that flat rate. That's wrong. Just tell you right now, we still see hotels that are doing that way. And so we try to, we have a special link just on occupation taxes, even though it's not our tax, it's a city imposed tax, but because it is something that is not commonly understood, we have a link that is on the occupation taxes that explains that you have to add in the city occupation tax first to the room rate. $100 room rate, $4 or 4% city occupation tax, for instance, on a hotel room. That 4% times the $100 room rate, or whatever it is, that subtotal amount is what is your base that is subject to the state and the city sales tax and the state and county lodging tax. And it is not just adding the various taxes all together and coming up with one rate. So when I see, and I get a phone call from someone and they're in the hotel industry and they say, okay, I'm charging them like 14.68% or something to that. I'm going, oh, good, you're doing it right, because I can tell when it's not just a exact, 0.5% or a full amount, that they have already gone through the mathematical calculation to say, if I have to charge a room rate plus 4% and get that base, and then charge the additional sales tax and lodging taxes, it's never like a flat 14% or 14.5% or something. It's always a little bit odd for the mathematical calculation of doing that. And we do ask that if on your folios or your statement to your guests, that when you do that, and if you lump all the city occupation tax, the state and city sales tax, the state and county lodging taxes into one tax rate, do not call it sales tax. Do not call it, just call it taxes, or because it's a conglomeration of 5 different kinds of taxes all being calculated together. So you can give them one line, and you can do that. You can show one line on their receipt, and it can say taxes, and it can be just the dollar amount. You do not need to put the rate. So we just encourage you to read our link that discusses occupation taxes. It will give you examples on what you need to do and how to calculate that correctly. The remote sellers are working through the details of collecting that correctly, because, like I said earlier, the occupation tax is imposed on the business. The occupation tax is being collected by your remote seller, just as they are collecting the sales tax, the lodging tax, but they are returning your occupation tax portion back to you, the hotel, and then you will subsequently report that on your city occupation tax return when you report that to the city. So that is the only portion of the tax that a remote seller is collecting on your behalf that you will receive back, and will be responsible as the hotel industry business to pay that sales tax, and to pay that city occupation tax to the city. They will take care of reporting the lodging tax and the sales tax on those sales that they facilitated for you. So I will continue if we don't have any questions, or,
We do have
Okay.
a couple questions for you that we'll
Okay.
go through here. The first question I have comes from Sarpy County, just to follow up of what we were just discussing with the remote sellers.
okay.
Does the Department of Revenue have a list of licensed remote sellers they are collecting state and county lodging taxes from?
We have a list, but we're not able to publish it, or just like we don't publish all of our hotels either that are licensed. You can call in and ask us if a specific company is licensed for sales tax and lodging tax or a tax program with us. We can tell you yes or no, and pretty much that's it, because we have very strict confidentiality rules, and so we can tell you whether they're licensed or not. If you, I'll just tell you that there's some pretty big remote sellers that are licensed under their corporate name, and they're companies that are, the travel companies that they take bookings through are not individually licensed. So sometimes if you've called in and you want to know if just one part of the company is licensed, it won't be, because it's going to be the corporate headquarters that is licensed. So I just wanted to let you know about that.
Perfect.
Okay?
Yes, and then I have another question coming in from Seward. And they're asking if you could please clarify if Airbnb collect and submit lodging tax to you, or does the person renting the room through the Airbnb collect the tax and submit it to you?
Well, that depends on your contract with the remote seller. They have different levels of contracts, and if they're collecting, if they're making the bookings, taking the reservations, and collecting the funds from you're traveling, your guests, but they're collecting everything from you, from that person, they will be reporting that sales tax and lodging tax to us directly on their sales tax and lodging tax returns. If you are collecting the funds, then the information we've received from those remote sellers is that that is considered a sell by the hotel. And if you're not, if you think this is not the way it's working with your particular accounts, then please call me and we'll figure this out and find out what why they're having you collect the sales tax on some. But if you're collecting if you're collecting the receipts for your guest at your Airbnb or at your hotel, those sales are generally going to be reported by you on your sales tax and lodging tax returns. The receipts that are totally collected by the remote sellers are the ones that they will be reporting the taxes to us on under their ID number separately from yours, with the exception of those cities that impose an occupation tax on the hotel industries. That occupation tax will not be collected by those remote sellers. It comes back to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, and then I have a question from Carney. It says, how can I find out what our county is bringing in dollar-wise on a month and yearly basis? Is there a website to get to this?
Yes, there is. On that same website we were on earlier, Nebraskan County Lodging Tax, down here under the Other Information link, we have lodging tax remitted to counties and settlement amounts. So if you click on that, you're going to be able to see not only what you received, actually you can do it for local sales tax for cities, and you can do it in historical values for cities. Down here, these links here are the ones that will tell you what our lodging taxes were that were sent back to each county. So you can see not only your county, but you can see how other counties are doing. This is the county lodging taxes only, not anything state-wise. Pardon me. It will give you what tax month we're reporting for. And just so you know, November 22nd is the settlement day for the tax month for September, because the tax returns for September are due to our department by October 25th. And so between October 25th and when we settle into your account is what we call our processing period. And that is represented here. So the settlement on November 22nd, which it generally is the 22nd of every month. The 22nd of every month is when you get your local sales tax monies for cities that impose a city sales tax, and lodging taxes. So right here, you can see these are the counties, and here's the settlement amount in this grayed out area here that will show for the month of September that you will receive on September or November 22nd. These counties, here's their actual lodging tax that was reported to us for that month of September. There is a 3% administrative fee that the Department of Revenue keeps for processing the tax returns and getting the money back to you. This amount over here is the settlement amount that your county will receive each month on its settlement date. So, and if you want to look at a historical picture of this, there's the current month, and there's also the historical value of this too on another spreadsheet that we have out here. So, was there another question in with that?
No, we don't have any more questions. Let me just double check. Okay, yes, we got to all of them.
Okay.
And I know that you did walk us through starting the lodging tax and the process, the steps for that. I just want to take this opportunity to express that Nebraska Tourism Commission wants people to know that we are here as a resource. So if you guys have questions that are a little bit more specific on other ways the funds can be spent, such as salaries for tourism directors, office help, you have questions about starting a visitors committee, if you need help with training, regarding other ways that you can spend lodging tax dollars or to grow tourism in your county and go after grants, everyone in our office is a really great resource for you. So please definitely reach out to us. We can kind of help you interpret more of the statute, whereas Department of Revenue looks at more of just as it's stated in the collection of it. So definitely, if you need help interpreting those, we would be happy to do that as well. So that's going to conclude our webinar for this afternoon. Again, I want to thank Karen for being here.
Okay.
And certainly go ahead and, if we have more specific questions, we can give you her contact information that will be available to you. And to also take today's survey. Let us know if this was what you were looking for, if this is really helpful. If there's other specific information that you're looking to learn, we'll definitely be happy to help you get that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.